Good evening, everybody. Yamini has already given us a very succinct and clear description of what the book is about, so I won't take too much time. Just to recall that, anybody who has spent even a season in India will know the power of epics and mythology in shaping our lives, our consciousness, our day-to-day. And I was delighted when I read this book because, it's not just the story as Yamini was describing it. What is amazing is that in Anuja's retelling of this ancient Tamil classic, which maybe some of you are not at all aware, I wasn't at all aware of, women are center stage. Women in different forms and different shapes, and it is a far messier story than you may imagine from a simple description of it. There's love, but there's also despair, there's grief, and there's feminine rage, which I found so empowering in a character. So Anuja, tell us a little bit about how you came about to write these characters, why you did so, and how you developed them.
Thank you, Ira. So in Tamil Nadu, this is part of your diet. You grow up hearing this story, you're breastfed this story. Okay, because, funnily enough, this Silapathikaram, it opens with breasts. So the opening stanza says that a woman with a single breast, a lone breast, was spotted. And when we grew up hearing this story, they left out this bit because it's violent. Because as Ira mentioned, we're talking about feminist rage. And to get justice for her husband, the protagonist of the story, Kannagi, she plucks out her left breast and hurls it at the city of Madurai, reducing it to ash. So I had a problem with that because, one, you're not told this story. You're just told that this is the power of chastity. This is how Kannagi became a goddess, and this is what you girls should aspire to be. The perfect wife, the uncomplaining wife. Husband commits adultery, no problem. I love you. You burn through your fortune and mine, I will still love you. I won't hit you with a broomstick. And if you get killed for being stupid, I will pluck out my left breast and I will burn Madurai to the ground. And see, the thing is, breasts are not detachable organs. The last time I checked, I would love to be able to use them as a nuclear weapon. But breasts can be weaponized, yes, but not as an actual bomb. So I wanted to write a realistic version of this story, one where women aren't trapped in a very problematic binary, where you're either the good girl or the wicked witch or bad something that rhymes with witch. No woman in the history of time has ever been entirely one or the other. We are complicated, messy, unreasonable creatures. Everyone in my life will attest to the fact that I reserve the right to be as unreasonable as I please. So this, the original Silapathikaram, much love to its creator, Ilango Adigal. He was a Jain monk, a well-intentioned one, but I think women's stories are best told by women.
100%.
And I'll fight anyone who says otherwise.
So true, which is why you should buy Anuja's retelling of it. So the other woman that, Kovalan leaves his chaste, virtuous, long-suffering wife for is Devadasi, right? A temple dancer, who has also, over the centuries, tended to be reduced to a certain stereotype, making her the fallen woman. We see that happening even with Amrapali, in the north, in the Buddhist scriptures. So tell us a little bit about how you have tried to reinstate her, perhaps in her true status as both vulnerable, but also there was a spiritual side to her, I found, when reading your text, right? She is a beautiful, sensuous woman, but there is much more to her. So tell us how you developed that character.
So with reference to the Devdasis, the much misunderstood and misinterpreted Devdasis, we realize that paradoxes can coexist. These were highly empowered women, and at the same time, they were highly exploited women also. Because it was an institution designed by the patriarchy to serve patriarchy. So you had your good wives at home, and for pleasure, you have the dasis. But the dasis, within the limitations imposed on them, they truly flowered. So they had one leg in the realm of the sensuous, the other in the realm of the spiritual. So they were highly cultured, hardworking women who were feudal lords. They owned land. They were movers and shakers. They were very powerful, the dasis. So I find that, dismissing, so the whole point is that paradoxes can coexist, that you can explore the sensuous and use it as a diving board for spiritual growth. So I wanted to, see, whenever we tell these stories, we have the other woman concept, where we villainize the other woman who acted in good faith actually. She was a young girl in love, and she didn't break any vows. You know, Kovalan was an adult who made his own decision. So I think when I try to tell both their stories, I wanted to let their voices be heard, and I wanted to leave judgment out of it entirely. Even with Kovalan, it was very challenging because you want to get mad at him.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what was it about Kovalam that these women were just so, besotted by him?
No, it's an age-old question. We've always wondered how two amazing women managed to fall in love with this guy. So once I set my own personal prejudice aside, that thing, that instinct which was telling me, you need to whack this guy with a broomstick. Once I left that aside, I realized that, we are drawn to the bad boys. They're sexy, undeniably. Virat Kohli is being a brat. Somehow, with the beard and everything, you're attracted to the guy. And you forgive him his assorted stupidities. But now that I'm a mom of 2 daughters, I try to be more sensible. And I tell my daughters, see, the guy worth going after, the guy worth holding on to, is that rare guy who's strong, but moderates his strength with kindness and compassion. The guy who's nice just because it's nice to be nice, not because he's trying to get into your pants. And Kovalan comes in that category. For all his faults, his assorted stupidities, he's sweet, he's sensitive, very kind. So, that's what drew these 2 women to him, that he was so attentive to their feelings, that you could talk to him, that he was generous to a fault. He blew up his entire fortune helping others. We don't value kindness in men, and then we complain about what jerks men are. So that's on us.
Of course it is. Isn't it always? Tell us a bit, Anuja, what I found really startling was your use of the imagery of blood, associated with women. When Kannagi goes to war, and of course she is drenched in blood, this imagery of blood associated with women is very powerful. We've seen it in the Mahabharata when Draupadi is associated with menstrual blood, the effect it has when she threatens to never groom her hair until she is able to wash it in blood. So there's a particular potency to blood when it is associated with women. Did you find that? Is it something you sought out and wanted to bring to people's attention?
Oh, Ira, I love that question. I'll just pause here to say I love her, and now you know why. Okay? So to answer her lovely question, now menstruation in women has been stigmatized. I don't know why. For some reason, people keep saying impure or whatever, or they go the other extreme and they say I'm celebrating my menstruation when it's just a bodily function. And there's nothing in Indian mythology, as far as I can tell. It's always, mythology is neutral. It's how you interpret these things. So this blood and women, it's associated with defilement, impurity. Whereas if you actually study the texts in Tantra and Sakta worship, menstrual blood is a huge part of it. Sakta worship, the goddess worship suggests that all paths lead to the same destination, which is salvation. That's a comforting thought. And the left-handed path is every bit as valid as the right-handed path, where you celebrate the taboos, the so-called taboos. You eat meat, you have intercourse with a menstruating woman. These are esoteric rituals that are unconventional, yes, but just because you don't understand something, it doesn't mean you judge it and you react with revulsion. So I came across this when I was researching Shakti, the divine feminine. So I loved that menstrual blood is considered something potent, not something impure, something that makes a woman lesser than. I loved that idea. And in fact, I read this book about Aztecs by Gary Jennings, and there was a little tidbit there that said the ancient Aztecs would add a touch of menstrual blood to hot chocolate to make a very potent love potion.
As
See,
they
now
should.
I'm not endorsing the making of love potions. Don't, no, you're welcome to try. Be sure to tell me the results. But I was interested. I loved this. I was thinking, look at this. There's a history for, considering the menstrual blood as something potent. And so I think this flowed. It was not a conscious thought where I thought, I'm going to cover her in blood. But when you're missing a breast, it happens. There's going to be blood.
There's going to be blood.
Unlike in a Sanjay Leela Bansali flick, where you look gorgeous when you're going to die. Deepika looked exquisite. I'm sure the reality was very different. I'm pretty sure, I wasn't there, but I'm assuming, women were dragged kicking and screaming to the flames, or they were drugged before they were shoved into the flames. So, it's not a beautiful business, it's messy. And the mess, embrace the mess. Embrace the mess. That's where life is.
You really have embraced the mess in the book. I mean, it feels so modern, it feels so visceral. It's unlike the epics, where we always have a distance because of the language, because of the philosophical interjections by various Brahmins along the way. Here you are living through the action with these, people who feel like human men and women. You are feeling their pain. You're also feeling their physical context, what they are eating, what it's like around them. Did you set out consciously to do this, and how do you do your research?
Oh, definitely. When it comes to the research, I'll start there. That part, I'm a very good student. I'm not messing around with the material. I seldom pissed off my teachers because I was a very good student. I meticulously take notes by hand, So I fill up entire notebooks. My husband's a printer and he keeps me plied with stationery. So I take these copious notes, and the interesting thing is, all the things I don't write down, that's what I need. That's what I struggle to look up later. So this is the foundation on which I build my story. So I enjoy the research process. I'm a geek, an unapologetic geek. So I love it. So I do my research very thoroughly. And when it comes to exploring the epic world, the inner richness of this world, I like to, whether it's gods and goddesses or whether it's characters like Kannagi, who was elevated to the pantheon of goddesses, I'm interested in what makes them tick. And because I'm a contrarian, and because I like pissing off my mother, even as a kid, I would ask, did God invent man, or is it more likely that man invented God? So I have that irreverence. Whether it's gods and goddesses or historical figures, there's no sacred cow as far as I'm concerned, So for me, I just want to figure out, as a psychology major, you have to put that degree to good use, right? So I'm interested in what makes these people tick, the human element. Somebody like Kannagi, she was considered a patni. A patni is a chaste woman, and it was believed that in a land populated by patnis, there'd be no drought, no famine, and no defeat in war. Do we have control over the weather? Do we? At any point in history, whether you're pure, impure, good, bad? No. And yet these are things they want you to, bear the burden of living the entire world. So I just cannot handle this kind of thing. Ancient incels have, bequeathed these stories upon us. It's an inheritance. It's problematic. It's beautiful. But there's always room for reform. So I'm exploring the very human aspect of all these larger than life figures so that you can get close to them and you can engage as equals.
That's really interesting. And talking of incels, I found that what you brought into the text as well, because you are putting yourself, trying to imagine their lives and trying to understand the motivations of these women, you do bring in a sensuousness which is slightly, surprising when you read a text like that. It reminds you that these women are, you're imagining them as real breathing women with real desires, and we often do not imagine the bodies of our so-called goddesses as having desires. How did you do this? And when this book is out in the world, do you think you will face some kind of pushback? Will people be surprised by this? Your mother? How is it received?
Yeah, my mom doesn't read my books because she told me it'll traumatize her too much. But she's always happy to listen to people who call her. And once I was accused of putting out pornographic content. And I told Mom, if you haven't read it, you don't get to have an opinion. And she was very pissed off, but she's happy to leave it at that. Register her discomfort and leave it. But that here is the problem. When it comes to feminine desire, we are supposed to brush it under the carpet and pretend it's not there. We are supposed to have only flowers south of the border, as opposed to genitalia. Whereas male desire, in all its unvarnished ugliness, is always celebrated, always excused, whereas feminine desire, it's either stigmatized or exploited. Thank you, you guys are so sweet. So when I write, I want to get to the meat on the bones, and really I want it to be an unabashed celebration of sexuality. And by that I don't mean I'm just putting in stuff there for outrage value, to provoke. No, it is just very much a part of our lives. Here we talk about the messy parts of it. Sometimes when Kannagi and Kovalan had a child marriage. So at that point, it's two clumsy people fumbling around in the dark. It can be traumatic for a girl who's taught not that, all kinds of touch is dangerous. Because when I grew up, mom would say, don't shake hands with men. She would say stuff like that. So there's a funny story in my family. My sister had just come of age and my mom gave her that lecture. No, don't let men touch you, no shaking hands. It's not like I'm from a culture where we even hugged each other. So I remember this gentleman had come home with his family, a family friend, and they bought gifts for her and he wanted to shake hands. So she put her dupatta over her hand and then she held out her hand. So we make fun of my sister. So I'm from that background, and then you're told get married and you should please your husband in bed. So many, then if you can't, they say you're a frigid woman. And if you like it and if you have an appetite for sex, women want it as much as men do, and then suddenly you're promiscuous. You're insatiable. So I just wanted to normalize sex and sensuality. As I pointed out, as a dancer, we believe in having one foot here in the realm of the sensuous, and the other foot in a very spiritual realm. That's where there's balance. You don't say this is dirty, then you want it even more, or you deprive yourself of pleasure. And if you don't feed that beast, bad things are going to happen.
Absolutely. And I think we can leave it on that note. And how can you resist such an introduction? Please buy The Wife and the Dancing Girl.
Thank you so much, Ira. Thank you so much.